Ladies and gentlemen, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to our California and Nevada chat and Friday, November 11th, 2021. My name is Len Dumas, Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer for the Northern California section of the PGA. Of course, thanks to our colleagues and partners, Tom Addis, Executive Director and Chief Executive Officer, the Southern California PGA, Nikki Gatch, Assistant Executive Director, Chief Operating Officer, Jeff Johnson, Chief Financial Officer, and of course our on-air team, Bryce Seaver, Caitlin Doyle, and Tyler Miller. We've got a beautiful day here in Northern California, and I'm sure the sun is shining down in Southern California. Our guests today are Damian Pascuzzo, founder of Pascuzzo Paid Golf Design, known to many, if not everyone on this call, because of his work with Bob Graves and Steve Pate that we'll get to as we go along throughout the state. And of course, Craig Kessler, our Director of Government Affairs for the Southern California Golf Association, keeping us on top of all things legislative and things we need to really pay attention to. So a couple of notes. One, we're grateful to have just attended the 105th annual meeting of the PGA of America last week in Milwaukee. It was a very strong meeting. The energy was high, and certainly part of that was just being back together again. It was good to be with each other, go through our processes, and carry on the mission of the association. So we look forward to continuing being together. And as a matter of fact, thus far, the PGA Merchandise Show is on the books, January 25 to 28 at the Orange County Convention Center. So be on the lookout for details. There are certainly some things to be settled about that, but right now, the PGA Merchandise Show is planned, and again, just a great opportunity to be for us all to be together as colleagues, partners, allied associations, and the association in general. So this time, continuing our welcome, our president Didi Mariotti, who's not able to make it. I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Addis. Tom. The Executive Director and CEO of the Southern California PGA.
Yeah, good morning, everybody, and thanks for being here with us once again on our monthly little chats. Robin Shelton is unable to join us this morning as well from Newport Beach Country Club, so we'll miss Robin. He sends his best, but had a meeting this morning and is unable to be with us. A couple little things here. Well, not so little, but would like to congratulate Nikki Gatch. I think a lot of you know this, but Nikki was at the end of last month installed as president of the Southern California Golf Association. So we're very, very proud of Nikki and her accomplishments and hard work to lead that association as well as ours. So it'll be a fun year and we're looking forward to it. Nikki, congratulations.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that.
You bet. One other thing, and I don't believe when we were last with you that we made this announcement. We may have, but PGA of America President Jim Richardson is now a member of the Southern California section as he is general manager at Riviera Country Club. So a nice step for Jim, and we're honored to have Jim in our section. And we look forward to working with Jim as a section member as well as president of the PGA of America. So exciting there. Mark Chetchot, who was originally scheduled to be with us this morning, will be with us now on our December 3rd edition. And so we look forward to Mark visiting, talking about drivers and talking about amateur status and those kinds of things. So again, great to be with you this morning and look forward to this morning's program. Len?
Yeah, thank you, Tom. And it is exciting to have President Richardson here, as that now, that's the hat trick for him. He's now been a member of Northern California, Aloha, and Southern California. So he has covered District 11. And certainly, Nikki, congratulations again on everything you've done and a great honor to be president of the Southern California Golf Association. So to our first guest, Damian Pascuzzo. Damian began his career in 1982, working with famed designer Robert Muir Graves. 9 years later, he partnered with Mr. Graves to form Graves and Pascuzzo Golf Course Architect, and taking over as the principal designer. Damian has worked on a broad range of projects, from residential and resort developments to the master planning and remodeling of existing courses throughout North America and Asia. 2003, Damian began a solo practice and collaboration with PGA Tour player Steve Pei. During that time, they grew their design portfolio with multiple projects throughout the United States and Japan. And Damian was elected to the executive committee of the American Society of Golf Course Architects in 1995 and served as president in 2001 and 2002, and continues to play an active role in the leadership of the association and is currently president of the Architects Association and Foundation. Damian received his Bachelor of Science in Landscape Architecture from Cal State Poly San Luis Obispo in 1981 and has spoken at the USGA regional seminars, the GCSAA National Conference, PGA Continuing Education, Urban Land Institute, and National Golf Foundation, and the Cal Poly Landscape Architecture Department. And in 2006, Monarch Dunes, which Damian created, was named one of the top 10 courses by Golf Magazine and one of the best new courses also in California by Fairways and Greens Magazine. The Ranch Golf Club named one of the top 3 daily fee courses in the United States in 2002 by Golf Digest in New England, and the New England Journal of Golf, and also the challenge courses at Monarch Dunes and Spurwig, the winners of the American Association of Golf Course Architects Excellence Awards. So Damian, that's your bio. We have a couple of minutes left to talk to you after that, but I just want to say thank you so much for joining us, Damian, for taking your time to join us this morning. And you know, just start with this, and this one's not new, but you know, architecture design, the things you've had to adjust through with water shortages and land use and the game changing trying to accommodate so many skill levels on the same platform, on the same playing field, and particularly with those courses that might host a tour event with the skill level that's experiencing, primarily the length that the players are hitting the ball now. So Damian, welcome. Thank you for talking to our golf professionals here in California and Nevada, and turn it over to you. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Len. As Len mentioned, I've been in the business for quite a few years, more than I care to think about. And we've seen remarkable changes I think even in the last the 10 years or so, when those of you that were around in the 80s remember that golf was going through a nice big boom, and it was sort of the attitude, hey, if you build it, they'll come, and build it longer, build it harder. And of course, that's all changed now. And we are focusing our efforts on remodeling and renovation. Primarily, the number of new courses, of course, has dropped significantly in the US, but the remodeling and renovation of existing golf courses, in almost every case, I'd say the vast majority of them, all towards an eye of making golf fun, which is an interesting concept, right? We're looking at creating this forward tee movement is now catching on and gathering some steam. The clubs that we've done it at, we've been, we checked back over the last few years, and those forward tees are getting adopted more and more by higher handicap players, older players, and it's just making the game much more fun. It's very interesting, some of the follow-up comments we're getting from members. I had a couple of older members say that when they were playing 5,000 yards, 5,100 yards, that they were getting tired by about the 14th or 15th hole. And it was really a struggle for them to finish the round. Now that they're playing 42 to 4,600 yards, they can play 18 and still have energy left over. And that's a comment I would have never thought about it as a designer, or a benefit of the forward tees I would have never thought of as a designer. And of course, we're hearing from people that are saying that they're staying in the game because it's more fun now. I actually had a chance at my club to play with a guy 88 years old, and we moved up to the 4,200 yard tees, and he had a great time. And he said, he was knocking it on the par threes. He was getting it close on the fours. He was making some putts, and he just had a great time. He says, "I'm never going back." So I think it's one of those instances of, if you can get people to try it multiple times, they realize how much fun golf can be. And I will comment as an architect that the club professionals play such a critical role in encouraging people to move up, even to the point of having special events so that people will give them a shot. And we've been very successful at our club with the support of our club professional, and in getting people to try these tees. So there's that trend in architecture. The tour pros now at the other end of the spectrum, they're hitting it so far. I'm not sure you can design a golf course long enough for these guys. I tend to think back to what my old friend Jay Morris said one time. He says, the way you beat them is with angles. And that actually has a lot of validity to it. But I think that almost every architect out there will tell you that what you've got to design for is the paying customer. You've got to design something that the membership is going to have a great time on, the daily fee player is going to have a great time on. And if the tour pros come in once a year and shoot 59, so be it. Bob Graves used to tell me way back in the 80s, they don't pay the bills. And so there are certain, obviously, golf courses throughout the country that have a long history of holding championships. And they're a very small percentage of the overall golf courses out there. And they probably have a little different attitude. But I think for most of the clients that we deal with, we need to keep our focus on the everyday member and their skill levels and accommodate the beginners as best we can, making sure everybody has a great time on the golf course. The last thing I'll touch on, or I should say the next thing I'll touch on in terms of what's facing golf course architects these days is water, and especially out west. It's an issue that's not going to go away for the next couple of decades. Craig Kessler is far better versed in the politics of California water than I am, but I can tell you that the turf companies are continuing to focus on developing drought-tolerant turf strains. I do think the biggest, and architects are looking at reducing the amount of irrigated acres. There are a few occasions where golf courses are the place. We're sort of the hero for the cities because we're able to take the reclaimed water and dispose of it rather than it just getting discharged into the creek or the river or the ocean. And there's so many different water districts in the state. Each one's a little bit different. I think our irrigation systems are getting far more efficient. Our pump stations are getting far more efficient. And I think if I have any complaint whatsoever, it's that a few years ago where there was programs to do turf reduction especially in Southern California, where you would get a certain amount of money for every square foot of turf you took out of irrigation. And golf courses were very successful at that, probably too successful, because the optics of it were not very good. And people were saying, well, why are golf courses getting all these tens of thousands of dollars and the private homeowner is not? They're getting a few $100s. And the fact of the matter is, on a single golf course project, I've taken anywhere from 13 to 20 acres out of irrigated turf. And if you think about how many homeowners would have to change out their lawns to accommodate, to have an equivalent level of turf reduction, it's thousands of them. So in one project, we can have a major impact. But again, the political optics of it were not very good, and they changed the turf reduction program and the rebates that were offered to make it not nearly as it doesn't encourage you to do it as a golf course. So, length, keeping people in the game, making golf more enjoyable, water, all critical issues that we've been dealing with for a while. Golf changes in golf tend to move at a glacial pace. I've said that a lot. Architects were trying to get the message out in the 80s and 90s that brown is beautiful, and that the Augusta model of wall-to-wall green is not the sustainable model for the future. And here we are, some 20, 30 years later, and still sort of preaching the same or singing the same song. I will share with you one final thing that I think is interesting, and that is this movement. It's in the early stages yet, but there is a trend now towards non-traditional golf. So we always think of golf as 18 holes, par 70, 71, 72, but there are a number of golf courses now that are coming about that are less than 18 holes. And it's an interesting response, I think, to some land use policy, the need for some additional housing in places. And I think it's also a response to the modern lifestyle of so many of our players. The old model of dad going off to the golf course for 6 hours on a Saturday just doesn't exist in too many places anymore. As I'm sure many of you know, golf courses have to appeal to the whole family, especially in the private club side. You've got to appeal to the entire family. But with today's lifestyle and time pressures, a lot of people only have time for what we call a little taste of golf. And it might be 3 holes, might be 6, might be 12. So I know in our practice, as well as a lot of my colleagues, we're looking to identify those shorter loops of golf to our remodeling and renovation clients, where people can go out and play 3 holes or 6 holes and have a 60 or 90-minute golf experience. We've done a few short courses that are 12 holes, so have several other designers. And so I think it's a trend it's never going to replace traditional golf, but it's certainly finding its spot, I think, within the golf marketplace as a great alternative offering to people that are short on time. So that's a quick 5 minutes there, Len. Do you have any other questions you'd like to cover?
Yeah, Damian, absolutely. Thank you for that. So in light of that last comment about a little taste of golf, there are a couple of ways to go about it, right? One is obviously shorter holes, but it seemed like the routing would be important too. If you had a quote unquote standard length golf course, 5,000 plus yards, some get off points. Does the 3rd hole come back? Does the 6th hole come back? Now there are some complications to that, but I'm sure that's part of the equation. It would seem to be anyway.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, there's always you got to be careful operationally. If you're playing 1, 2, 3, 17, 18, how do you blend those people into the folks coming off of 16? But I think at a lot of facilities, maybe not now during the pandemic, but prior to the pandemic, I think those late afternoon rounds, it was easy to do. It was easy to blend people in. And it's certainly not a new concept. I think, I'm not an expert at this, but I think, wasn't Pebble Beach famous for its whiskey round? Play a couple holes out, a couple holes back in. So this idea of a shorter loop, it's not a new idea, but I think we're seeing it come to more prominence. And again, to this audience, I think I want to stress, as an architect, we can design it, but if we can't get the help and support of the PGA professionals to get behind the idea and encourage their members and players to do it, it's just going to languish. So it's so critical that architects and professionals work together sort of to this common vision, hoping that, all in an effort to get people to play more golf, or maybe to go play, now that they know they can go play 3 or 4 holes in a short period of time, they come out to the course instead of doing something else. So it's to all of our benefit.
So Damon, I recall, I believe you had one design that was on limited land, and it was 9 holes out, and then you just kind of reversed direction and came back in reverse order. Do I have that right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, St. Andrews is a little bit like that with their double greens, but really what we're seeing a little bit more of now, Lynn, is especially in Southern California and highly populated areas where housing is in such demand, that one of the alternatives, rather than simply closing a golf course, is to take a portion of it, set it aside for housing, and then do something with the remaining golf course. And it does. There's a number of benefits to that, in that the infrastructure is pretty much there already. Unlike a new development, which might be on the outskirts of town, or suburban expansion where you've got to bring roads and water, electricity, and everything in. An existing golf course that's in a suburban or a metro area already has those facilities. And so it's very, very lucrative or advantageous to take a certain portion of that and develop it into housing. The trick is, what do you do with the residual golf land? And there's a number of different solutions. We're actually working on a project now that is taking the residual land, and we've created a 12-hole regulation golf course. It's exactly 2/3 of a standard par 72. So it's 4,800 yards, or excuse me, par 48, 4,200 yards, I think 4,250 yards, 3 5s, 3 3s, 6 4s, and our intent is, as well as the operational team we're working with, is that we're very confident that we can market this as either a 12-hole experience with an option to play an additional 6 holes from different tees if you want to go 18. But we also have identified 3-hole loops and 6-hole loops that all work in and out of the clubhouse, and without disrupting the flow of play. So you can play 1, 2, and 3, come back to the clubhouse. You can actually play the first 6 and be close to the clubhouse, or you can play all 12. And meanwhile, what it's done, this is so many golf courses have lacked investment over the years. They've taken 30 acres to do residential development. 300 houses, that might be $300 million in real estate. And so it's very easy for that residential developer to kick some money back in to improve the golf course then. So to put a $10 or $15 million investment back into the golf course to enhance that amenity to complement the residential development, when you're talking those kind of numbers, it's a good equation, works for everybody. And so this could be the way of the future for some of these golf courses that we're struggling and don't have got millions of dollars in deferred maintenance. Especially if you're a 27-hole facility, there's been a number of those that have taken one of their 9s and developed it into real estate and been able to fund improvements to the 18. So as the demand for housing increases, we might see more and more people go this route.
Well, Damien, when we get to Craig later on, that will certainly segue right into Assembly Bill 672 that's out there right now, of course. And during the pandemic, and we're grateful for the uptick in golf and a continued uptick in golf, did you get calls from facilities regarding the future, saying if we maintain this level of play, we need to change some things out here on the golf course?
Well, you're half right. They haven't asked about if we maintain this level of play. They're already saying we've got money in the bank. We need to fix the place up.
Yeah.
And this is a nationwide phenomena. I would say it's simply not here in California. I talked with our executive director of the American Society of Golf Course Architects a couple of days ago. He said he doesn't think our members have been this busy since probably the 90s. And, back when the National Golf Foundation was telling everybody we need to open a new golf course every day. So there's a tremendous amount of work out there. I don't think anybody could have predicted the impact the pandemic was going to have on golf. The question, of course, is as we get past the pandemic, will the participation level stay the same? And I don't think anybody has the answer to that. We certainly hope it does, or if there is a loss, that it's a small loss. But clubs and across all sectors, not just private clubs, but even on the municipal side, their bank accounts are looking pretty good, and they're looking to reinvest in their golf courses. And the architects their phones are ringing.
Hey, Damian, this is Tom. I have a question.
Sure.
Or there is a question. Going back to the shorter courses and the demand, especially right now with the shorter courses, everything seems to be flourishing in that regard. I know most of the time, especially with some of these places, some of these golf courses that have added a short course, whether it be a private or public. But what about standalone? Right now the standalone golf courses seem to be doing okay, and with the demand. But if this demand diminishes at all, the economics will change, and a standalone short course could be a challenge. How do we answer that? What do we do with short courses that will make them more attractive and continue to attract the players?
Yeah, Tom, that's a great question. Even before the pandemic, we wondered if a short course could be financially viable all by itself. So when we did Monarch Dunes up on the central coast of California, the first course was an 18-hole golf course. The second one was a challenge course. That's what we dubbed it. 12 holes, all par threes. And it was very, very successful. But we wondered, could you take that model and put it on its own without a practice range, and could you make money on it? Interestingly enough, the real estate value generated around the short course was almost the same as homes that were located on the championship golf course or the regulation golf course. So we didn't see a big drop off in real estate values. And I wish I had a definitive answer for your question. I don't know if you can get by with just a short course. A short course and a practice range with a vibrant teaching program, probably so. But just a 9 or a 12-hole short course on its own, I don't know. I think it's very, very market dependent. I think if you're in a metro area, like Los Angeles, your chances are way better than if you're, somewhere in the San Joaquin Valley.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. I know my father was at this long time ago, and the conversion was a long time ago at Hayward Golf Course up in Northern California, and they closed down the regulation, put condos on the golf course, and now have a fairly nice 18-hole executive course running through those condos. So that's a good example of what can be done. So I appreciate your response. Thank you.
Well, I will share one more thing with you is having grown up on the south side or southeast side of LA, I cut my teeth on these little par 3 courses, these municipal par 3 courses in Southgate and Bellflower and places like that. And a couple of years ago, I went back and met with the park director at Southgate, and their little par 3 is really struggling. And the only reason that it hadn't been changed over into something else is because it's their city wells sit underneath the golf course. But there's another factor here too, is that the demographics of the community have changed quite a bit. It's largely a Hispanic working class community now, and he's having trouble reaching out or developing a golf population out of that. And the rest of the things in the park do quite well. The batting cages, the soccer fields, the basketball courts. But there has to be some outreach too, I think, to more of the blue collar communities and some of the different cultures to introduce them to the joys of golf.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Southgate know it well, and we've been working with Compton,
Mhm.
the city of Compton on their par 3, working also with Moreno Valley, the same type of population numbers, and the par 3 golf course that, well, there's a little more to is more of an executive. They have 2 par 4s, but yeah, there somehow have to tie in with the general golfing community and increase the participation value of those golf courses. Thank you.
Yep.
And I think that would dovetail, Damian, with everything and your comments right at the beginning. We've learned more. We've learned about multiple tees. We've learned about family tees. We've learned about short courses, and all those are a way to introduce and keep people in the game as we go through various stages. So there's so much construction going on, Damian, which is great, and renovation, which is great. And we talk so much these days about supply chain.
Well,
and so on and so forth. Has that affected?
Oh,
what's the effect of that, if any?
It's been huge. All the golf course contractors that I talk to that work on either a regional basis or a national basis, they're struggling for labor force, just like everybody else is. A part of that is, a lot of their labor force would come in on I think it's the H2 visas, the 9-month work visas, and those are not being processed as quickly as they used to be, so labor force is a big issue. One of the bigger golf contractors in the country told me a couple of weeks ago. He says, I may have to turn down a couple projects because I just don't have the bodies. Where he could easily, a couple of years ago, he could easily run 4 or 5 projects. He's like, I got 2. I got crews for 2, and so that's having an enormous impact. But more importantly, the costs are spiraling crazily. We're hearing 30-35% increases on costs. Things like pipe. You can't get certain diameters of pipe because the manufacturers aren't making it. They're only making their most popular diameters. And so if you have something that's less popular, you may not be able to get it. Sprinkler heads, same thing. It's the cost of those is just gone through the roof. And even with all of that, all the contractors are busy. So that probably tells you a little something about, for many people, many of the golf courses, how much of a boon this pandemic's been to their bank accounts. So yeah, we're seeing the same thing in golf that everybody's seeing the retailers and factories and stuff like that. Prices going up, labor shortage. Who knows when it's all going to work out.
Yeah. Thanks, Damian. So many of us, if again, not all of us on the call have been club professionals, and I'm tying in a conversation we had earlier that we deal with green committees and we deal with boards, and there are things that they know and there are things that they think they know, particularly when it comes to the design of a golf course, of a bunker renovation, whatever the project might happen to be. So you've got a solution to that, or at least a piece of solution to that, correct?
Yeah, we do. So, and I'm speaking now on behalf of the American Society of Golf Course Architects. A couple of years ago, we started the development of a book, and I'm going to take a second here just to share my screen, if that's okay. And I'm not enabled. Anyway, we've produced a book called Designs on a Better Golf Course, and it's available on Amazon.com. and it's about a 190-page paperback book, sort of modeled after the little red book that Harvey Penick did, 2-3-page chapters. But the whole intent was for this book to serve as a primer for people on the Green Committee. We've all seen guys come on, men and women come on the Green Committee that don't have a lot of experience in the issues, agronomic issues, design issues related to golf courses. And they do their best, but there was really not a very good resource for them to go to get a fundamental understanding of the issues that they have to deal with. So we've produced this book, and it covers everything from what's the purpose of a Green Committee to hiring an architect, not hiring an architect, how fast should my greens be, what is the purpose of hazards, how do we do bunker renovations, what sizes should our tees be, how many should we have? I mean, all of the nuts and bolts that come up at standard Green Committee issues or Green Committee meetings are covered here. And like I said, it's not a graduate degree course. This is really just a golf remodeling 101 type of level book, but there's nothing else like it in the marketplace. And so we think it's a tremendous asset for Green Committees to have. And the bottom line is that if you encourage your Green Committees to buy this, or if you buy a few copies and hand it out, it's going to make your job and my job a little bit easier, because now they'll have a foundation of knowledge that they can build from. Len, you and I were talking earlier that, how many times you've been corralled by a member or a golfer or something and said, "Oh my gosh, our fairways are terrible today. I played at my friend's club down in Florida last week and it was fantastic." And the poor guy has no understanding of, warm season turf in Florida versus cool season turf in parts of California. Why aren't we overseeding anymore? And they don't understand the impacts of water and downtime and cost of overseeding. So the book is a tremendous resource for people at that level. And like I said, it gives them a fundamental understanding of the issues that they're going to be dealing with. And so again, it's designs on a better golf course, practical answers to common questions for Green Committees, available on Amazon.com. End of shameless plug.
Thank you. So Damian, thank you. And thank you for your time this morning. Again, I've said this to many and even a little bit this morning, but working with you and meeting you when the office was in Walnut Creek a time ago, and we got to know each other, and you helped me create my paper to become a PJ member. So that started a long relationship, and I thank you and I'm grateful for that. Damian, we'll call on you again, as we go through this, and we have other things to talk about. But in the meantime, continued success, and thanks for being part of our industry and spending your time with us this morning. And if you can stay on to listen to Craig, which we all enjoy, even better. But if you have to go, totally understand that as well. Yeah.
I am afraid I have got to drop off, but thank you for inviting me to share a few minutes with you this morning. And just another great reminder of what a wonderful business the golf industry is, and very, very fortunate to be a part of it.
Thanks, Damian. Be safe.
Take care, guys.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we now introduce Craig Kessler, known to all of us. And Craig is, of course, the Director of Government Affairs for the Southern California Golf Association. Craig, pretty good leeway from Damian in there to some extent regarding Assembly Bill 672, but I'm sure we'll talk about that and some other things that are going on. So Craig, again, thank you. You've been with us for every session these past 16, 17, 18 months, and the floor is yours. Yeah.
Well, today, if Damian stays with us for just one more moment, I think he'd be happy to know two things. We've talked to the Metropolitan Water District recently, and they are going to up their commercial rebate program from $50,000 to $200,000, and maybe we'll talk to them a little bit to up it some more. If the drought deepens, they're obviously moving in a good direction. And I'm quite familiar with the project. I won't name it, Damian, that Damian's group is working on. That is in Southern California. And the SCGA has formally supported that with that jurisdiction because it was a binary choice between really a golf course that was beyond repair. It's an old daily fee golf course that had its day, and its day had come to an end. And this is the binary choice there was between no golf and this rather creative 12-hole golf course with 6-hole loops and 3-hole loops and community centers and practice centers. And it struck me as a somewhat of a hybrid for those who are familiar with the community links concept, which I think is fast catching fire throughout the United States as something to do where land is scarce and packed urban and suburban areas. Also, interestingly, you can't see me today because I'm phoning this in because I am, ironically, Damian, I'm just outside of Southgate in Downey, where you grew up and some of the courses you referred to, which is also in Assemblymember Christina Garcia's district. And I'm here because a little bit afterwards, I didn't have time to get from home by my computer to this site because I'm going to do something that all of us on this call should do more of. I'm going to play golf this rather beautiful November afternoon where it's unseasonably warm. So if you can't reach me by text or phone or whatever way the rest of the afternoon, I hope you'll understand I'm doing something of greater and higher purpose. Although I don't think that the course rating is in any danger. So let me get down to it. I am in the author of Assembly Bill 672's district, which has a lot of golf courses, not just the little developmental ones that Damian Pascuzzo referred to, but some really good municipal 18-hole facilities and even a private club or two. It's golf rich, which is an interesting site for this particular bill to emanate, but so be it. Just to refresh your memories for those who need it, that Assembly Bill 672 was introduced at the beginning of 2021 in January, which is a 2-year legislative session, and that's significant for this discussion. And at that time, it was a case of, how shall I put it, bad legislative overreach. It simply incurred too much opposition beyond golf, of course, in that it would have served up the state's municipal golf courses, which, by the way, is 22% of more than 1 out of 5 are owned by governmental agencies in California. It would have removed them from the protections of the Surplus Land Act, the Park Preservation Act, the California Environmental Quality Act, and the most important thing, from local zoning prerogative. And it would have, in essence, even if it was against the will of a community, would have forced the hand of a local jurisdiction to perhaps turn their municipal golf course into housing. That bill failed, and it failed to even get to committee, in part because it was a bad case of legislative overreach, and in part because I think there was a really good reaction. We're told that the author called it overreaction, to which my response was good. I hope golfers can continue to overreact when things like this are filed in legislatures. But at the second to last day of the session, Assemblymember Garcia substantially amended the bill so that when it arrives on January 1 and goes live again, it goes from a piece of really bad legislative craftsmanship and legislative overreach to, in my opinion, a piece of excellent legislative craftsmanship. Now, I define excellent legislative craftsmanship not on the substance of the legislation, but on the way in which it's put together with to see to it that it might actually get, through 2 houses of the legislature and signed by the governor. And for us, that's bad news. And I'll explain why. It's a good piece of craftsmanship because it now restores local zoning prerogative. It restores CEQA. It restores Surplus Land Act and Park Preservation Act. So it's not as if, but it also adds some financial incentives in the form of, assuming it passes appropriations in the Budget Committee, it adds $50 million of subsidies to developers who want to, approach local jurisdictions to turn, the ones that would be most ripe for this are the ones that Damian referred to in Southgate or Bellflower or Norwalk, where he grew up, and eventually, he learned at these little 3-pars and eventually became one of the best golf course architects in the United States. And that's not an uncommon story in so many different ways, not just with architects, but with professionals, with presidents of fancy country clubs who begin at these kinds of facilities. So you see what's in danger with things like this. We lose those facilities, and I think that was the point of Tom Addis's question. We lose these facilities, and we lose what has contributed, has been the opening pipeline and the sustainer of the game, the growth of the grower of the game for many, many years. So as enamored as we are of that 30% COVID bump, and, will we keep all of it? No, but I think my sense is right now, the early indicators are that we'll keep a substantial portion of it, and that's great. But, my saying is it's hard to grow a game if you don't have somewhere to grow it. And where most of the people live in the United States, and certainly in California, they live in tightly packed urban areas and suburban areas. And those are precisely the demographics, and Damian referred to that as well, that we have invested so much effort, so much programming. I know these two sections certainly have, and the amateur associations have, and even the national organizations have, in trying to make the game, be much more diverse and much more geographically broad and so forth. So back to the particulars of Assembly Bill 672, which we at the SCGA have decided next time you get a communication from us, we'll be referring to it as the Public Golf Endangerment Act, because average rank and file, this audience is pretty sophisticated, but the rank and file golfers who we are going to, I'll get into it in a moment, who we're going to appeal to contact their legislators and go to their golf courses and speak up about this in their communities, they're not wonky. They don't pay attention to 2257 and 672 and all this number mumbo jumbo that people like me talk about. But something like the Public Golf Endangerment Act, or a campaign that might be Save Public Golf in California, that will appeal to their better judgment, and maybe also cause them to do what only they can do as constituents, which is let their legislators know what they think about this particular bill. So it still proposes to chop municipal golf courses into housing. It restores a lot of those protections that incurred the ire of other groups having nothing to do with golf and generally don't much care about golf. Certainly every city council in this state cares deeply about maintaining control over zoning, and they lost a little bit in this last session. And I'm going to go wonky on you by using the numbers of the bills, SB 9 and SB 10, having to do with housing and transportation corridors and the capacity to obviate single-family zoning by putting as many as 4 units where local cities have only permitted 1, and that's mandatory. It's not permissive, and that is a response to what every poll of every sector of the state, every demographic group answers is, in the opinion of all of us, is the number 1 problem in the state, and that's affordable housing. Homelessness is a related issue, and that finishes high up, to the degree to which it's related, it's part of this. And so so I think we need to get very serious about 672 because it purports to address a problem that everyone agrees is our number 1 problem. And you heard Damian talk about, in more creative solutions that do preserve a measure of golf, this seems to be a bit of a wave of the future. Now, if golf can have a measure of some say in it, we'll do it in creative ways that work for us. 672 would not be one of those ways. So, and what is really insidious about it, it isn't as if every municipal golf course in the state is going to be chopped up. Many of them are in riverbeds and flood zones, landfills. They are where they are, as maybe even the assembly member may soon discover, for a reason. The reason that a lot of parks are, because they weren't all that good property for development. But as things really get squeezed, property that was once upon a time fit for a golf course or a park suddenly becomes a little bit more fit, particularly with modern technology and building on distressed properties, for housing as the price goes up and the acute need goes up. And the really insidious thing about this is that if golf were being asked to participate or put some of its skin in the game, along with every other park, every other open space, and dare I say, controversially, along with the land conservancies in this state, which are massive, my guess would be that every golf course in the state of California could fit comfortably within the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, which is almost entirely within the city limits of Los Angeles. And there would be room left over for a couple of thousand more golf courses. But that's not being put up for development. Only golf courses would be carved up, and they would be the sole focus of this particular bill. That would play into a principle that politics understands really well, is whose blood is in the water. So if we don't defeat this, if we don't at least mitigate it, if we don't defend it, if we don't put up one hell of a fight, our blood is in the water. And that just means the sharks will be coming for more and more and more of it. Notice they're not going after some of these other sacred cows, even though there's infinitely more property and infinitely more good property, developable property available. But they're perceived as politically too heavy to go after, and apparently we're not. So it's really our challenge in the next few months. And that challenge begins before January. When you get stuff from your section, when your members through the SCGA and the NCGA get those emails to contact their legislators, yes, we can prowl the halls of Sacramento. We can have meetings. We can make pleas. We can enlist maybe some municipal governments that'll stand with us. We can enlist maybe environmental groups and open space groups, and that one may stand with us as well. But there is no substitute in politics. There's no substitute in public policy for real, live constituents of assembly members and senators who live in the district and have an opinion. And anyone who has the temerity to send an email, to write a letter, to make a phone call, to do a letter to the editor, to show up at a town hall and open their mouth, it's someone that every person in elected office understands as someone they might call, they might call them a troublemaker, but they are an opinion leader. They're the kind of person that goes to church on Sunday and discusses the issue. They go to their golf course and they open their mouth. They talk it up, and they affect 100 other people, sometimes more. And there's nothing that stirs the passions and interests of elected leaders more than what their constituents are talking about and what they care about. So it's incumbent upon us to let them know that we're talking about it. Golfers are talking about it. We're not the usual passive patsies that we normally are, where we can be as engaged as other groups and other organizations and those that are not coming after, and make everyone understand that 22% of the golf courses that are in jeopardy by this, and I would add there are more in jeopardy because there are certain protections in California law that benefit, particularly tax protections that benefit daily fee courses and very much benefit private courses. And they'll be next if this goes. It's a slightly different issue, but the same cast of characters that may perhaps have some strange ideas about who golfers are and what golf courses are also have some rather strange ideas about the value of open space and the value of golf in their communities, even when it's different from the municipal level. So it's incumbent, the time has come to get off our backsides as citizens and do what every other group does and make our opinions known. Again, those of you who listen to me, those of you who follow, and even those of you who criticize me as always being too quick to compromise, look for the deal, the best possible alternative, and I'll plead guilty to that, because most of what we deal with can be dealt with in a compromising, rather measured way. But when there is a bill floating out there that decides that golf and only golf, of all the park activities, all the recreational activities, all the open space activities, it is the only one that we're going to serve up with a $50 million incentive to developers to solve the problem that everyone agrees is an acute problem. We have to do, I don't think, and this is not about being against housing. This is not about being against public housing. This is not about countering the fact that that's a very real crisis and problem that we would happily participate in fixing. It is about singling out golf and making a legislative finding that golf is not fit to be on the property on which it's located. That's what this means. And if that angers you, good, because it's meant to, because that is ultimately what will be the conclusion. Now, there are a lot of persons in elected office who don't share that view, but they have a lot of issues on their plate. And keep in mind that housing is one of them. So in the coming weeks, you're going to be seeing a lot of materials. There's been quite a bit that's come out from the SCGA, but you're going to be seeing come out to the California Alliance for Golf, through the SCGA, the NCGA, the SCPGA, the whole alphabet soup, from the owners groups, from the GCSA chapters, which are already engaged. And our effort is going to be to try to engage real life golfers and citizens on a mass basis to do the one thing that we cannot do, which is make clear what public opinion is on this particular issue moving forward. So I have to get all my passions out so I can be calm while I'm hitting a 4-foot downhill or left or right for par this afternoon, while trying not to have a psychotic break while looking it over. So with that, I have no idea if I've generated questions because I can't see you and you can't see me. But if there's a little bit of time left for some questions or some other things, I had planned to talk about some encouraging things dealing with gas-powered engines under 25 horsepower, and even some encouraging signs moving forward about some further relaxations in the independent contractor rules. Right now, I think we've been fairly successful on that, but I'd like to see us be more than 96% successful to 100, and I think there's some hopes for that. But that's a teaser to stay tuned in December, when maybe we'll be in the full-blown 672 campaign and you'll all be engaged. And then perhaps we will be able to share a little bit of good news. I don't want to share any good news today because I wanted to make you mad so that you'll take some action when you get these notices and so forth and so on. So with that, Len, Tom, I'll end my filibuster. And if there's any time and there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So thank you, Craig. And well, look at it, maybe not make us angry, make us alert, right? Make us alert and aware. So Craig, one thing, and I asked for an explanation. And when we talk about the Surplus Land Act and the Park Preservation Act, and I don't know if it applies to CEQA, maybe it does, but I believe you have referred to those as non-self-executing, meaning they just don't kick in. Does that mean that as we go through 672 and prepare our fight, and that we have to bring it up, or the constituents need to bring those up to the legislatures to remind them that those are in place and they can't make the rules to just dance around them?
There are certain things about CEQA which are self-executing. In other words, it's a requirement. Although I am aware on a totally separate subject that the South Coast Air Quality Management District actually did something in forms of a consent decree with the oil and gas industry that CEQA required an environmental impact report, and they didn't do one. So again, and that's not uncommon, but in terms of the Park Preservation Act, there's nothing self-executing about it. And I'm aware, and I'm not going to name any here, that there are jurisdictions that are openly flouting it. And their challenge to us is, if you don't like it, sue us. Otherwise, they're going to continue to do what they're doing. And once you get past a certain point, it becomes a fait accompli. They're not going to undo things to go back to the beginning. You have to file suits in a timely fashion. So those are challenges. And if this distresses everyone, good, because I hope it distresses you. We do not have in the state, through the auspices of the California Alliance for Golf, what a statewide alliance for that absolutely needs, which is the capacity to file those suits when when the law is being flouted to get and because none of the small organizations, certainly PGA sections or amateur sections, it just doesn't fit our nonprofit status, and it doesn't fit our brands as well. So those are the differences. And those things that are routinely available to industries quite a bit smaller than California's $13 billion industry are not available in golf. And if that frightens you, that's good, because when I've spent some years, I politely call it the intersection of public policy and golf, and that's a sanitized way of putting it. But it's really in the rough and tumble of politics and interests and people fighting with each other to get attention and to get resources. And when you walk into the room, we have the worst of both possible worlds. We're perceived as too rich, too old, too elite, all those kinds of things everyone knows that are not true. And yet we walk into a room and we have less resources than the other folks around the table, particularly when it comes to, a group like the Public Trust for Land goes out there and does a lot of work and can raise millions of dollars for good works. We don't have that capacity. I think the large powers that be on a national level are starting, that message is getting through, but from the moment a message gets through to real resources are available, it definitely takes some time. No time like the beginning to start, but if you're asking your question, I think I answered your question. Most civil laws are not self-executing. They're interesting, but but it's not like the criminal law. There's no police force out there. There are some pieces of civil legislation in which the legislature empowers a government agency to oversee things, but they've not seen fit with the Park Preservation Act, which is our best bet in protecting the municipal sector.
Okay, so then it sounds like, Greg, that yes, it is our responsibility to say, hey, you can't do that. And here's where it's written.
Yeah, but the only way to do that is get a really good law firm. Really good law firms cost really, really big money.
Right.
There is always the rub. You can't just hold a sign. You can go to city council meetings and waive it. I'm not going to name the name, but someone who was a very prominent commissioner in the city of Los Angeles one time, I think, put it beautifully. We can do whatever we want unless somebody sues us.
Right.
Keep that in
Yeah,
mind.
understand. Yeah, you did say that, okay, it's there, so sue us, right? And we hope it doesn't come to that. Craig, one question was the impact to golf from the recent Metropolitan Water District drought emergency. Yeah.
Well, no immediate impacts, but obviously everyone.
What will the impact to golf be from recent? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I broke up just a little bit. Look, drought is descending upon us. We've had Mother Nature's intervened a little bit lately, and that's good news. But we're looking at, right now it's voluntary restrictions, and there are Northern California counties that are looking at mandatory restrictions. The good news, and I'm in the southern part, it's not the greatest news necessarily for the north, is that the southern part of the state's been working this for more than a decade with the large water providers. And we have all kinds of alternative means of complying with drought restrictions in place other than days a week and hours a day and so forth. And generally, and for that reason, during the height of the 2016 drought, whereas in some northern jurisdictions, golf was required to cut back more water than domestic residents, it's been the opposite in the southern part of the state. And the reason for that is having spent the years with facts, letting the public utilities and the water districts understand and letting them conclude that we're the most efficient outdoor irrigators. And despite that, we're always willing to roll up our sleeves and help them do more. You get treated better when you do that. And I hope we've continued. I hope we've continued to stay in their good graces, and as time moves forward, we'll be able to be treated well again. But if things really get bad, keep in mind that when the masses of the population who don't play golf, are using bath water to water their flowers and taking out lawns and doing all those kinds of things, and they drive by a green golf course, what was that word I used a little bit ago? Anger? They'll get angry, and we want to make sure that, at minimum, that we do our best, and particularly with optics coming forward. Again, we have our fingers crossed. We hope that the early rains and snows are harbingers of more to come in this year, and that will bail us out. But keep in mind, even if we get bailed out in the short term, we pretty much live in the land of permanent drought in the Southwest. The Colorado River Basin, we're barely hanging on in California. We have very high allocations because we were a big bag state in 1922 when they started, allocating water off the river. Arizona had barely entered the Union in 1922, and Colorado and places like Nevada had no population, but we did, and we had agriculture. But we're going to be voluntarily giving some of that up. That's going to affect. That's one of the main sources of imported water in Southern California is the Sierra snowpack, and we know where that's been in recent years. And it's the Colorado Basin snowpack, and those things are drying up. And one good year is good. It's always good to have a good year, but the longer term prospects are not the same. We've come to understand that since Mother Nature works in geologic time, and geologic time is in hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years, that California, as we emerged from the mini ice age in North America in the 1870s and 1880s, from that point up until recently, that's when we grew to 40 million population. That's when we grew to 1,000 golf courses and various other things. And it turns out that was a very benign weather period, very stable. we could plan, we could count on it. We built infrastructures based thereon. And now all those bets are off as we've moved into a different climatological era. And some of the infrastructures, there's technologies that can build to that, but those cost money too. And the degree to which those monies are put on ratepayers, I'm gonna make this point. To the degree to which things like Measure W in the county of Los Angeles kind of put the burden on only impermeable surfaces, and golf courses are substantially permeable. That's why that was a good piece of public policy. So sometimes, looking at the pennies and forgetting to look at the dollars is not a good long-term strategy, because ultimately, if we're going to continue to thrive in California at all levels, and particularly golf, those infrastructures are going to get built and they're going to cost a lot of money. And if they're put on the ratepayers, and we are ratepayers big time, then that adds even more to the costs than some of the supply chain problems you've heard about, some of the construction costs. We know what's gone on with labor costs in recent years. And it may not be 672 that puts us out of business, but what puts or diminishes our business is the reality that if it takes just too much to produce a golf course, that cuts out a percentage of the population that just doesn't qualify financially for what we're offering them. Need to keep that in mind moving forward too. That's part of the challenge. That's probably a longer answer than you were looking for, but I saw my opportunity to inject some other themes in there that are very important. So I did.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you. Again, you've been with us for this whole ride, and clearly we have some work to do. There are some things that we can control, which are very, very few, and most of which we can't, but we're in it for the long term, and we're in it to stay together and solve what we can. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Craig, good luck this afternoon. Have some fun playing. It is just a gorgeous November day, so it would seem, throughout the state of California and in Nevada. So we're grateful for that. And time to wind down. Tom, some thoughts, please.
Yeah, just real quick, Len, thank you very much. First of all, thank you to Nikki and Bryce, as usual, for pulling this thing together, this chat together. We appreciate that. And thanks to everybody for, sorry, I didn't have my video on. Thanks to everybody for joining us. These are great chats. The next one is mentioned at the earlier on December 3rd, Friday, December 3rd at 10 o'clock, where Mark Chetshot, who's the club professional tournament director for the PGA of America, is scheduled to discuss the new rules of amateur status, as well as any of the other rules changes like driver length, those kinds of things. So we look forward to that, plus another interesting guest as well, trying to line up. So thanks, everybody. Len, thank you. And we look forward to seeing everybody on December 3rd.
Okay, thanks, Tom. And everyone else, please continue to be safe. We have a holiday coming up, Thanksgiving. The best to everyone. Stay healthy, stay together, enjoy the time with your family, and we'll continue on staying in touch. We'll continue to meet the challenges and see you on December 3rd. Thank you.